Today is talking about studying history, what we use to study history and why we study history. So on your end, you're going to be filling in a note sheet that looks like this. So be listening for these words, be listening for history, historian, culture, archaeology, fossil, artifact, primary source, and secondary source. In those boxes, you're going to be typing in the definition that I'm going to be telling you. You'll type that down. And then later on at the end, we'll also be talking about 3 reasons we study history. So the first thing is, the people of the ancient world, they didn't build skyscrapers. They didn't invent the automobile or send spaceship to Mars, but they still did some pretty amazing things. They built huge temples. They invented writing, discovered planets. Every step that we take in technology, science, education, literature, it builds on what other people have done a long time ago. Who we are is because of what people have done in the past. So what is history? History, the definition, is the study of the past. So, on your note sheet, this is where you're going to put study of the past. History is just studying the past. A battle that happened 5,000 years ago and an election that happened yesterday are both parts of history. Doesn't matter the time period. It's all a part of history. Historians are people who study history. So it's people who study the past. Their main concern is human activity in the past. They want you to know, they want to know how people lived, why people did the things that they did. They try to learn about the problems people faced and the solutions they came up with. So again, a historian is people who study history. Historians also look at how people lived their daily lives. How and where did they work? How did they fight? How did they trade? How did they farm? Did they worship? What did they do in their free time? What did people do back then? What games did they play? Basically, historians, look at the past to understand people's culture, which is the knowledge, beliefs, customs, and values of a group of people. So culture is the knowledge, beliefs, customs, and values of a group of people. So historians are looking at culture of people. Another important thing that helps people understand the past is archaeology. So on your note sheet, you're looking now at the archaeology box. Archaeology is the study of the past based on what people left behind. So archaeology is the study of the past based on what people left behind. So archaeologists explore places where people once lived, worked, or fought. The things that people left in these places could be jewelry, dishes, weapons, whatever they leave behind. Artifacts. Remember, we talked about artifacts are objects made by people. So archaeologists are looking at artifacts to figure out how these people lived. They examine these objects the objects that they find to learn what they can tell about the past. So I always make, you guys might know a famous archaeologist. That archaeologist is Indiana Jones. I say famous, he's actually a movie character. He's not a real archaeologist, but he went and looked for objects, archaeologist. All right, so we also are going to use clues to help us learn more about the past. We have to use many different sources to learn history. For information on the very first humans, we have fossil remains. A fossil is a part or imprint of something that was once alive. A fossil, again, is a part or imprint of something that was once alive. Bones and footprints preserved in rock are examples of fossils. As human beings learned to make things, they also created more sources of information. They also made artifacts, which was those objects created by and used by humans. So, it could be coins, arrowheads, tools, toys, pottery. And then archaeologists will look at those artifacts and the places where the artifacts were found to learn about the past. There's other sources of information about the past too. About 5,000 years ago, people invented writing, that time where first history was written down. They wrote laws, poems, speeches, battle plans, letters, contracts, many other things. And we can use those to tell us about the history and how people lived. People have also recorded their messages and their thoughts and ideas in many other ways. You could find writings carved into stone pillars. You find them stamped on clay tablets, scribbled onto turtle shells, typed onto typewriters and sent by computer. There's many different ways to have history written down, recorded. So there's two types of sources that we can look at of history. We can have a primary source or a secondary source. A primary source is an account of an event created by someone who took part in or witnessed the event. So again, a primary source is an account of an event created by someone who took part in or witnessed the event. So in other words, the person was there, experiencing it, and they wrote something about it. So if somebody went to a basketball game and wrote, like a journalist or something, and wrote something down about the basketball game that they went to, that would be a primary source. Treaties, letters, diaries, court documents, those kind of things are also primary sources because it comes straight from the source who experienced or witnessed what happened. Another type is a secondary source. So a secondary source is information gathered by someone who did not take part in or witness the event. So they heard about it from somebody else. So, like a textbook, the person who wrote the history textbook wasn't there experiencing it. They're getting information from a primary source and writing it down for you. You might also see journal articles, encyclopedias. Those are all secondary sources because the person writing it did not witness what happened. The historians who wrote these things did not take part in the events described. They just collected the information and wrote about it. So primary source, the person was there or witnessed it. Secondary source, the person was not there. They got their information from someone else. So far you should have your boxes filled out. If you need to go back, listen, pause, write down your information. All of these boxes up here should be filled. Now we're going to talk about why we study history. There's three main reasons why we should study history. The first one, studying history helps us know ourselves. We kind of learn more about our background, about, why the culture we're in does what we do. Why do I do what I do? Helps you kind of stop and evaluate yourself as well. So the first one is, helps you know yourself. The second reason, it helps you know others. Studying history gives you a glimpse into other people's story. You learn about, okay, why do they do what they do? What's their story? When you get to know somebody else's story, it gives you a better understanding as to why, they say, do, or experience the things they do. So the second thing is, helps you know others. And finally, the third thing, helps you know your world. It kind of gives you an expanse, gives you an idea of what else is out there in the world. Gives you an idea of different cultures, different, countries, why they might do the things they do. It gives you an idea of what they've gone through, what they've experienced, what they have, what they don't have, what they've learned. And it gives you an idea of, just a better view of your world. So studying history helps you know yourself, helps you know others, helps you know your world.